Dear learner, today we have new few important topic regarding the UPSC prelims 2026. Today we have the environment topic, wildlife sanctuary, tiger reserve and national park. Let us look one by one and after that we comparing all three. And first we have wildlife sanctuary. Wildlife sanctuary is a wildlife refuge, the area where endangered are safeguarded from the extinction in the natural habitat. They are safe from hunting, predation, and competition. A sanctuary can be promoted as a national park. Wildlife sanctuary declared through the notification. No need to pass legislation by the respective state government. From the state government are guaranteed protection under the WPA Wildlife Protection Act 1972. The Chief Wildlife Warden control, manage and maintain the wildlife sanctuary. The state government appointed a officer as a collector to determine the extent of a person's right. Certain rights of the people living inside the sanctuary could be permitted. Grazing, firewoods, collections by the tribal community are permitted, but strictly regulated settlement are not allowed. Settlement are Settlements are not allowed in the wildlife sanctuary. Then we look the national park. National park, just like wildlife sanctuary, are the declared through the notification by the respective state government. National park are also notified by the state government. They also granted protection of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. The significant difference between sanctuary and the national park lie the vesting rights of the people living inside. Unlike the sanctuary, where certain rights may be permitted, in the national park no rights will be permitted. No rights are permitted permitted in the national park area. No livestock grazing shall be allowed within the national park. Within the sanctuary, chief wildlife warden may be regulated, control and prohibited such grazing. The boundary of the wildlife sanctuary are not specified, where national park are clearly defined and demarcated by the state government. The boundary of national park are defined by the state government. The state government has right to include land in the national park, but only the recommendation of the National Board of Wildlife can be state legislature alter the boundary of the national park. In June 2022, Supreme Court directed that mining within the national park and wildlife sanctuary shall not be permitted. Mining shall not be permitted. Shall not be permitted in both wildlife sanctuary and national park. Then, Biosphere Reserve. Biosphere Reserve are the large area of the protected territorial marine coastal ecosystem. They are designated, recognized by the UNESCO plus MAB. MAB means Man and Biosphere Program. After the national government nominate them. The designation of Biosphere Reserve does not change the site legal status. Land, forest land, natural resource regulation and ownership remain the same. The area remain under the sovereign jurisdiction to the respective country. UNESCO term Biosphere Reserve as a learning place for sustainable development. UNESCO say that Biosphere Reserve is a learning place for the sustainable development, involving the conservation of wildlife, plant, animal resources, and the traditional life of the tribals. The Indian National Man and Biosphere Committee under the MOEF recommended the potential site for the designation as a biosphere reserve following the UNESCO guidelines and criteria. The state government prepared the management action plan in which the approved by the monitor in the map. The government of India provide financial assistance in the northeastern state, 3 Himalayan state. The ratio of northeastern state is 90:10 and other states is 60:40. A biosphere reserve in India may have one or more national park and wildlife sanctuary. A biosphere in India may have more than one national park and wildlife sanctuary. In terms of protection, national park are most protected area for the animals, then wildlife sanctuary, then the reserve forest, and then the protected forest. Now we are comparing national park, wildlife sanctuary, and biosphere reserve. Law maintained by the WPA Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Same for wildlife sanctuary 1972 wildlife protection and biosphere reserve national government UNESCO and map. The authority for the national park state government and center approved, and the wildlife sanctuary is state government, and the biosphere reserve central government and MOEFC and UNESCO. Focus area entire ecosystems, specific species, biodiversity and sustainable development. Human activity allowing not allowing national park, completely prohibited in the national park, limited allowing biosphere reserve and wildlife sanctuary, limited allowing wildlife sanctuary, and allowing the transition zone in the biosphere reserve. The size of the national park is smaller, and the moderate and the large cover with the multiple area. Thank you so much.